What is a furry? What defines a furry? What makes one a furry? Neither of these questions have ever been given a determinative answer, nor is the possibility of such an answer existing. This is because the moniker of furries is an identity. Its meaning is set by the individual. Its definition is subjective. A furry equally could be a mere Disney fan or a fairyman depending on who you ask. Unfortunately, such complex thinking is lost in society. That's not me being pessimistic. We as humans love to give things a definition, a category, or a label. Thus, the presenting image of a furry is an extremely integral factor for the large majority of a fandom. Holding a clean public image and one that represents the fandom to the best of its capabilities is of utmost importance. Therefore, keeping bad apples from becoming the face of the fandom in order to not spoil the whole barrel is a must. This is what happens when that goes wrong, and the consequences the fandom faces as a result. In this video I will go over two topics. We'll set the basis for what a bad public furry figure could be, then we can discuss the representation of furries within the media. So first, we'll need an example, and there is a perfect one for this. This is the story and the consequences of Kero the Wolf. During the years 2016 to 2018, a hatred for furries became mainstream. The existing disdain for furries became unavoidable. Cringe compilations, hit pieces, articles, it was everywhere. Coincidentally, Shane Dawson had amassed a growing audience of millions. The stars couldn't have aligned any better, so in 2017, these forces would collide. Shane Dawson made an interview with a furry. During the time the interview was a success, Shane Dawson would sit down with Kero the Wolf. They would conduct an interview that went over a few generalized questions and misconceptions surrounding furries. As during 2017, information of what furries truly were about was even more sparse than it is now. Those who enjoyed Kero's presence and character would jump over to his channel for more of what they saw. Subsequently, Kero would turn from a small content creator to garnering 50,000 subscribers due to the event. This would be incredible growth by any metric, and would boost Kero's brand as they became a popular figure in the fandom, collaborating with the likes of Majira Strawberry and other large furry creators of the time. Kero had cemented himself as a positive encouragement towards the furry fandom, and stood out to promote such positivity. However, what seemed to be like a perfect story would soon crumble upon itself. In September 2018, a scandal known as the zoosadism leaks would be published to the internet. This act unveiled a secret community through video files and chat logs that aimed to house people engaging in zoosadism. Zoosadism is an extreme form of animal abuse, one that extends past the practice of zoophilia. It combines the term sadism, the sexual gratification experienced by inflicting pain or humiliation onto others, combining with the term zoophilia, which is the sexual attraction towards animals separate from the human race. Therefore, zoosadism derives this attraction from the physical harm exerted onto an animal. Some of this video will be diving into this subject, so I encourage those who are not comfortable with listening to that to exit the video now. Or you can skip to this timestamp where I stop talking about the graphic content of the leaks, and we move on to his response. Then finally concluding with my take, which to me personally is the most interesting and yet seldom discussed conversation. You still here? Okay, the original leak of the Telegram messages goes by the alias Akela. They themselves contain their own controversy, as Akela is a self-identified zoophile, who was against the actions of zoosadists. They would post these chat interactions with a caption reading, "No more covering for these people, these are not what zoophiles are," followed by posting files of Telegram messages alongside naming a total of 11 names, including the man of the hour, Kero the Wolf himself. Yes, Kero the Wolf was involved in a zoosadist Telegram chat. What was contained in these leaks are horrifying, and I'm going to link videos that focus purely on these leaks, and the timeline of events if you want the full context. In the early stages of the leaks, a Twitter user would post a summary of what some video within the leak contained. They gave a description of 5 videos posted. Video 1 contained a medium-sized dog abused with toys and then the real thing. Video 2 contained a German Shepherd tied up that is then Video 3. Necrophilia is committed upon a deer corpse that begins. Video 4 contains a video of someone performing of a puppy. The next video contains another small puppy, where the wide end of a bat is I should note that not all of these videos contain Kero in them, merely posted to the chat Kero was involved in. There are a lot more heinous examples from other members of the group chat that are addressed all over the internet. Again, more videos will be posted below that will delve into this, although it won't add much to today's topic. With the basic context out of the way, I'll next share a few messages from Kero himself. This should help demonstrate the exact type of person we are dealing with today. Many messages were leaked from this event, but I'm going to stick to some of the more disturbing ones. 23rd of October 2016, Kero writes, "Sorry for not responding last night, I passed out. But yeah, I'm okay with necro stuff if it's not that bloody, but I'm totally against killing for sex. I would only do it with roadkill." In another interaction with the owner of the chat, SnakeThing, he would have this exchange. "Ooh, cub porn. I always loved some puppy butt. Same. I need me some puppy booty. Same. Let's go grab ourselves a real cub and an animal. Let's make some real shit." For those unaware, cub is slang referring to underage furries or animals appearing in explicit media. If you need further proof, Kero would type in another conversation how he is okay with humping a 4-month-old. The actual number of these disturbing messages is vast. To give a brief summary, Kero talks about molesting his family dogs growing up, complaining about lack of roadkill in his area to have sex with. Members of the group chat suggested bringing a sedated dog, pumped with drugs such as marijuana, which would then make it harder for the dog to fight back. They suggested this dog be brought to a convention for bestiality purposes. I'll also make the note that some extreme is mentioned in these chats. This isn't from Kero, keep in mind, rather from members like Glowfox, who described how he molested an 11-year-old he was babysitting at the age of 18, also in graphic detail. Whilst Kero himself hasn't seemed to have done anything public, him being a part of these chats shows he was complicit in these people's actions, equivalently smiling and waving at the actions of pedophilia. Countless other examples are shown within these logs, such as around 61-year-old Timothy George Amoroso sedating animals, inflicting many wounds, and literally cooking and eating the animals after he's finished with them. And before you think that's gotta be the worst, I assure you the stories and copious amounts of people involved continue on and on and on from there. Upon hearing such stomach-turning, disgusting claims directed towards Kero, the question was brought up if this Kero was the same Kero we all know by this point. Videos which are now deleted from around the time show this belief in practice. I should note that these people have later changed their belief as more information has come out.
People go to insane lengths to destroy people they don't like. It is totally not out of the question that someone would have done this out of malicious intent, and they would have taken the time to do it. And it's work.
And to their defense, they are not wrong. There is a very real possibility someone would go to such lengths, especially towards a hated group such as furries. Although this argument doesn't hold up with the amount of evidence towards Kero and his lackluster response. Kero would claim in a series of tweets that his account was hacked. Furries and drama. Before you go around believing these rumors about me, know the facts. My account was hacked. I would never do any of these things. These are faked conversations. All of this is someone trying to get attention. They're called trolls. If you choose to believe it without thinking about it logically, then fine, become that troll online who has that mob mentality. But please, look at both sides first. I didn't do this. It should be obvious these logs are fake. They don't even sound like me. Whilst of course hindsight is wonderful and we have more proof that it was the real Kero, even for the time, only drawing to the fact that they talk differently is absurd. Not only that, but the statement that they don't talk the same isn't even true. Before these leaks, Kero greeted his YouTube About section with the phrase, "arf arf," a greeting mirrored by the Kero from these chat logs. Kero would also tweet claiming that his account has been hacked, and someone from Iran had accessed his account. With that in mind, let's go over a comprehensive list of evidence this is untrue, and how we can nearly completely confirm this was the same Kero from the chat logs. In screenshots showing his supposed hacking, a key symbol can be seen indicating that Kero was using a VPN, a tool that could have been used to fake the screenshots. Both Keros claim to live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Telegram Kero shows screenshots from upcoming videos before they had even been released, such as the videos "Kero is still gay" and "These websites are cool," and his fursuit unboxing video. both show Kero's interest in vor, both show Kero's similar music taste, including posting the same screenshot and caption about Smash Mouth as he posted the same day to Twitter. In a video showing a cameraman molesting a dog, a number of ties can be made showing that Kero was in fact the cameraman performing this stunt. The cameraman was spotted wearing tennis shoes identical to those worn by Kero to conventions, along with the jacket Kero had also worn. The dog in the video was a large black dog, with similar fur patterns and identical red collar to Kero's dog Coda. This would make it a near impossible coincidence for Kero and this cameraman to not be the same person. More connections would be made tying Kero to zoophilia outside of these Telegram chats. For example, an account on a now defunct chat site Beast Forums, a site dedicated to collectivizing zoophiles, would spark suspicion with one account suspected to be Kero's. Same age, gender, both live in Pennsylvania, both were moving to college in the suburb of Oakdale, Pennsylvania at the same time. But most importantly, this account would post pictures of an apparent puppy they had gotten which bore resemblance to Kero's dog Coda, alongside the accompanying message. Hello, I got a puppy and he is now 6 months old. The pictures below are when I first got him, but I was wondering when I could have deeds with him, etc, etc. Furthermore, this account would post an image of said dog which would be mirrored to Kero's official Fur Affinity page, which is another forum but for, well, regular furries, but well, that's why his brand was tied to the account is what I'm saying. This post on Kero's Fur Affinity was posted on November 18th, 2012, whilst the same identical post on the Beast forums were from January the same year. For added guilt, when these were found, Kero would delete the post on his Fur Affinity page. One last thing before we get to the present day, another example of a connection between Telegram Kero and real life Kero, with an added nuance to it would be about Collie, the former boyfriend of Kero, who I would say was a member of these chats, although that wouldn't be very accurate, as Collie does not exist, at least only as a pseudonym. See, Kero really did have a boyfriend, commonly referred to as Shippy Paws, another person with implications in the zoo sadism leaks. During their relationship, Shippy Paws would pass away from a drug overdose. Kero would be open about this event publicly after it occurred. He would make a video which went over his death using Collie as the alias for his deceased partner. Coincidentally, Kero would be open in the chat logs about this death. I'll play a short sped up clip of Kero the Wolf who demonstrates the crossovers of these two Kero's reactions. Kero the Wolf has been a large component of information regarding Kero, so much of this information is credited to them. I'll leave their links below.
Is it about Illy? Because we've been trying to find out what happened for a week now.
A day went by, and then a week went by. I started to get worried.
We tried reaching out to his work. They couldn't tell us anything. We searched everywhere online. Nothing turned up. So my friend is going to try to get a hold of his father tomorrow and see if he checked himself in somewhere.
And then I tried to contact all his friends. I tried to contact his parents.
Last thing he sent me was a Google joke.
And he sent me this stupid Google picture. It was so stupid, but it was funny at the time.
And then I didn't hear from him again.
So I responded, and he never gave back a response.
Shortly after the leaks came out, Kero would remove any mention of Collie. This is because he had inadvertently created the smoking gun in the case, which tied himself directly to Telegram Kero. Thankfully, this information was recovered and distributed to the authorities. Although, simply based on the statute of limitation laws, Kero has not been charged for his crimes. As Kero the Wolf tweets, bestiality is a misdemeanor in New York, and their statute of limitations on misdemeanors is 2 years. If this video was created from an episode of animal abuse that happened in 2014 or earlier, the police in 2018 couldn't do anything about it. Ergo, Kero is unable to be charged, nor can a judge prosecute a search warrant. As a consequence of this, about 2.5 years later, Kero would return to YouTube. He would return with a 15-minute video that merely acted as a pitiful attempt to claim the chat logs are fake. Evidence is simply ignored and simply goes on an emotional gut feeling, which could be completely dug apart and disproven easily. Even still, Kero is not left. He continues to persist on the platform to this day, although his page appears to be a little different, and a new question arrives. Who is Radiance? With the wave of new technology throughout the internet, use of voice changes, especially amongst those in the VTubing community, has become increasingly popular, as a quick way to easily mask your own voice to whatever you ideal. Ethics aside, Radiance is Kero's attempt at masking his former identity.
Starting today, I will be rebranding this channel. The new name will be called Radiance.
with a brand new look. Why the persona and name change is obvious, as the connotations from his previous persona would send alarm bells in almost every furry, which becomes blatantly apparent when Radiance says he no longer uses his suit nor partakes in fursuiting, which makes sense after his old suit was so extremely infamous and identifiable. In his 3-minute return video, The Future of My Channel, Kero, or Radiance, makes a comment about social media which stuck out to me.
A lot of people seem to think that social media matters in the grand scheme of things. But honestly, it's just a bunch of noise. It doesn't really affect me in my real life, and it shouldn't affect your life either. I feel like we put social media on a throne, but really, it's meant to connect us, not divide us. I feel like we do more dividing because we want to feel better, when in reality, it just turns into bullying.
This quote in particular sticks out to me because of his methods of coping, morally grandstanding by bringing a real-world issue, whether you want to accept it or not, social media and use of said social media, and using this to relate it to his crimes. To a degree, blocking out what you hear on social media is good for you, although for Kero his crimes extend into the real world, which can be seen in the police who attempted to get involved. So his logic doesn't stand here either. The noise of social media he refers to is what he did to animals, what he liked to do to animals. It's his sick, twisted pleasures he got from his actions, and Kero, or Radiance, still persists on the site, let alone in society, affecting the minds of youth. In a comment I noticed under the video of a Radiance, a user who claimed to be young and confused asked what was happening and he didn't know if Kero was a bad guy. Another commenter would reply saying Kero was a fantastic guy and that everything was just a 5-year-old rumor, with the child responding pleasantly. I went on this guy's channel to find they feature not only Radiance, but someone named Kit the Soulless, who owns a Furry account into cub porn. They are also a defender of Kero in the sense they believe it's all rumors. That shows what happens when you keep Radiance around, and how bad Kero has really done. Kero is a disgusting yet interesting story. Its interest and its provocative nature keeps it in the pipeline of YouTube content and throughout the media. It's obvious why this is. It's both captivating and incites a negative reaction, which if you didn't know is the most easily shared, therefore most widespread type of story. This is one example of how we get oppression and stereotyping towards specific groups. In the case of furries, this is done in multiple ways. For social media, a common example is cringe compilations, pushing the label of furry into what is dubbed cringe culture. We see this a lot on the internet because it can be easily shared, quickly consumed, and easily reacted to. Reacting to cringe compilations isn't something you would see too often on mainstream television, however, but on the internet, specifically YouTube, it's common practice. Mainstream media and television has a more anger-provoking perspective, inciting belief that furry is a pseudonym for sexual deviance. For example, in a 2008 airing of the show 1,000 Ways to Die, in Season 1, Episode 4, a man takes a handful of mushrooms before getting lost in the desert. He then stumbles onto a group of furries having an orgy around a campfire. The narrator tells us that, quote,
"What's a furry? People who like to put on animal costumes and get together for fun things like group sex."
What's notable about this video is the fact that it aired in 2008, a time when furries were existent but largely unknown to the general population. To kids, this video can have a distinctive, impressionable effect on the perception of furries. Whilst the show itself is comedy, people such as a girl in a lab coat who briefly explains the science behind magic mushrooms will create an idea that what they are talking about is real and trustworthy. Obviously, kids are dumb, and societally, kids are often taught schema that white lab coats equals smart, scientific, and to be trusted, which then breaks down this moniker of comedy and instead acts as an incorrect first impression. If you're curious about how the clip ends, by the way, he gets rejected by the furries for being human and screws a bear that instead mauls him to death. Yeah, it was quite the show. Anyway, this alongside countless other examples either lie or falsely misrepresent sexual aspects of the fandom. It creates this toxic atmosphere of furries being a place for sexual deviance to run wild. Where this becomes dangerous is when this is pushed to the absurd yet logical extreme of sexual involvement with animals. This is where this relates back to zoophilia. The dangerous belief of sexual deviancy is often connected to the illegal and beyond immoral acts of sexual relations with animals. What stories from the leaks, and specifically Kero himself, have provided is an outlet for some people to express their hatred and perpetuate dangerous beliefs about furries, and acting as more ammunition for anti-furry people to label the general fanbase as dog groomers. That's not to say there aren't some extreme problems within the community, but there's a difference between the community of furries and the label of furry itself. The amount of Minecraft YouTubers exposed for being groomers doesn't reflect on anyone who picks up the game, just a minority community who has a following of minors. This is about the point where people may bring up furry statistics through various psychology experiments done throughout the decades. Just a warning, this topic is immense and could have someone dedicate their entire life to figuring it out, so allow for slight amounts of subjectivity. When googling for zoophile representation in the furry community, you typically come across two results from Wikifur and a PDF published by the Furry Research Center. They go over many aspects of demographics within furries, but skipping to the topic of zoophilia, Wikifur provides the result of 18.4% for all furries in 2007, and on page 26 from the PDF published in 2008, that gave a result of 17.1%. This PDF does end with the conclusion that the average furry, quote, likes animals but doesn't feel any sexual attraction to them. Although, from the results, 17 is obviously high and a problem. Statistics such as this have led people to some conclusions. Relating to Kero, YouTuber Kofrix and leaked DMs to Kero would bring up the statistic in a weird normalization type of way, talking about how furries wouldn't care if he was just a zoophile and nothing more. Although me and other people have problems with these statistics, and largely that problem consists of their sample population. It's obvious that the sample data was from some pretty hardcore adult furries. When asked if they belong to any furry websites, 73.1% said Fur Affinity, followed by the second highest of Yifstar at 13.5%. That itself isn't enough to constitute biased sample data, but further research does ask that question. For example, in a much more recent investigation from the Fur Science 2019 studies, attendees of AmphoCon 2019 were asked questions regarding furries as a fetish on a scale of 1 to 7. The results on screen showed this, but what I am interested in is data from 827 furries who had a fetish, furry or otherwise, that gave answers for specific fetishes. This would result in ranking of BDSM, vor, fursuit, but tied for 15th for zoophilia at 6.9%. Don't make a joke out of that, which for many people will still make them uneasy. However, this then provides an example of how framing results can skew opinion. If I told you 8.9, or we'll say 7 out of 100 furries in this room had some sort of attraction towards animals, that would make this picture seem different. However, framing this statistic alongside statistics of the normal population then provides a different story. In the Journal of Biological and Medical Studies published on March 25, 2017, they provided an editorial on the health risks of zoophilia and bestiality. They focused primarily on health effects and diseases, but importantly for today they gave statistics on zoophilia outside of the furry fandom. Quote, zoophilia is considered a taboo subject in modern society, yet the reported prevalence rates range from 8.3% to 4.9% for men, and 3.6% to 1.9% for women in the normal population. In the citations, this appears to be largely based on two books published by Alfred C. Kinsey and others, on sexual behavior in the human male and sexual behavior in the human female, totaling over 2,000 pages of studies. Now, this isn't conclusive. These sorts of studies never can be, and this splits the population into two groups of sexes, which would be a problem if furries weren't infamously male-dominated. In the exact same 2008 PDF, they found that 80.3% of those asked identified as male. Then taking that statistic of 6.9 zoophiles in the AmphoCon attendees, comparing them to the general male population, they fit snugly within that range of 8.3 to 4.9%. With all that, this is not to say that there isn't a zoophilia problem within furries. I understand that these are likely inaccurate to some degree, as is consequence for general studies such as this. By likelihood, more furries are likely to be zoophiles, and there are solvable issues to minimize that statistic. Conversely, there are solvable issues within the general public as well. One possibility for furries may be the lack of stigma entirely. For example, in the same editorial, they noted that when studying psychiatric inpatients, the number of zoophiles rose to a near 55%. In that Fur Science article, a great deal of furries identified as being bullied in a variety of ways. Shrinking Bringing that together, it may be possible that anti-furry rhetoric is partially responsible for this epidemic, and I've seen that reaction from furries and furry supporters. A great example is the top comment left under the Definitely Bored Oranges video about Kero. Now, I'm a fan of Oranges, I'm a member on his channel, and I like this video, so this isn't about him, but the most liked comment under his video shows the reaction to Kero. Kero was such a big hit of damage for the furry community, gave a bunch of anti-furries ammo to call us dog Shlm. He left a mark on our community for the worse, and it really sucks, dude. And they're right, that's the sort of consequence that we get from events such as Kero. I am not saying people shouldn't make videos about Kero. I would be deeply hypocritical for that. Please, make more. It should be something talked about, especially with Radiance still being on the platform. Again, there are problems that should be addressed in this community, and my points are not denialist of that. But an even and more importantly accurate story should be expressed. Whilst you may think you are simply telling an interesting story, you could in fact be a useful idiot for these dangerous and inaccurate portrayals of furries. A useful idiot is an old political term that describes someone who unintentionally spreads a message from a devious source, without comprehending the original source's narrative. A narrative which unfortunately has real-world effects towards the group of furries. Think back to how furries are portrayed in the media. This media would affect the impressionable child watching, but equally as important the adults, which are the core demographic of modern television. If the belief is common that the fandom their child believes they belong in is filled with sexual deviance, they will wish to protect their child from this, especially if this would then be related to sexual relations with animals, which would then raise extreme alarm. In media, it's typically a much more neutered perspective, more or less cases on sexual deviancy rather than zoo sadism for obvious reasons. They can't air that on television. This is seen for a lot of other forms of politics, but that's a conversation for another day. It's through general society and social media that this is blown to the extremes, like assuming all furries are animal f***s and harassment based on those beliefs. This is an unavoidable consequence. What's really interesting to me, however, is why Kero himself is so notable. As I stated before, Kero was a well-known figure in the community. Not just that, but due to events such as the Shane Dawson interview, he was also known to an audience of non-furries, making his general image to the public of importance. That's why the story of Kero was so impactful. With his former influence and notoriety, a large consequence ties back to furry representation in the media. That's why I'm mentioning this in my conclusions. I think that this conversation is a much needed one. It provides me with a way to talk about interesting stories such as this in a fair and balanced way. One that attempts to harm no group loosely associated with what Kero originally stood for. His message of furry respect is now shown to be skewed and self-centered, with the apparentness that his definition of furries was not appropriate. Although that's not all I have to talk about with this drama. I've told you the macro scale of how societally I believe this has affected the public image of furries. But internally there's points in the story I want to draw attention to. Think back. Think all the way back when the messages were first leaked. These messages and these chat logs were leaked by a zoophile named Akela, accompanied with the text, "These are not what zoophiles are." They go on, quote, "We may disagree on things, but I'm sure that you can agree that there are some things that even enemies can meet on. Animal torture and murder. Hopefully these are some things. Check the logs, you'll find more." Attempting to make a distinction between a zoophile and a zoo sadist. This itself is a distinction we should make. Even zoophiles, which many rightfully class as the highest amount of scum found on the internet, disavow what zoo sadists stand for, including hypnotist Sappho, who I have talked about on the channel, stated that they are against this subsection of society.
If you remember that situation with the zoo sadism leaks a few years back. And to be 100% clear, I am not like that. Most of the zoo community is also not like that and utterly despises it.
This depicts a weird sort of scapegoating from these people. We as humans like to have this peace of mind that if we do something bad, someone somewhere has done worse. I myself have received comments about how hearing some disgusting person made them feel better about themselves, or something along those lines. And the interesting fact is that this feeling is often experienced by the same disgusting people the comments are directed to. When it gets blown up to the extreme, you have disgusting people such as zoophiles comparing themselves to the likes of zoo sadists to cope with their own fucked up desires. It's a sort of logical fallacy where one builds this illusionary superiority over people they determine as worse. A zoophile like Akela, for example, may form this idea that what they are doing is morally correct based on them perceiving zoo sadists as the larger of two evils. animals. This creates a culture allowing people to feel safe and correct in these dangerous beliefs, preventing them from attempting to receive treatment. This prevention of receiving treatment is seen using a different method towards Kero. Out of all the messages revealed in the leaks, one stood out to me as quite depressing, to be frank. Included amongst the sea of messages was the conversation after Kero's dog passed away. It was in this time that Kero began to show some semblance of remorse, both on Twitter and within the chat logs. Thank you. I left the group because it reminded me of the stuff I did to him. Now that he's dying, I can't believe I did that to him. I can't be a part of that group any longer. I love him so much, and when he needs me, I can't be there. It's almost 2 states away. Despite this remorse being short-lived, its reaction from the group chat struck out to me as disturbing. SnakeThing replies, "Wraps my arms around you. Try not to feel beat up about what you did / what you've done. He still loves you in the end, and I'm sure he has had a blast of a time with you. With some care, he could survive until you see him again, I think. Though it come at some cost, I think. But closure for you, I think it'd be worth it." I don't think you're gonna get a much more blatant message than whatever you call this group chat. However dastardly as disturbing I could portray these people as, these communities are traps. It shows to the extreme extent how echo chambers and hive-minded people in one space can perpetuate an ideology, how escaping this space can be difficult. Now, I will not speculate on if people like this can be fully mentally cured. Unfortunately, this type of person is an under-researched field. What I will hazard a guess on is that proper handling and prevention could easily protect future animal victims, which is all that we obviously want here. Although, unfortunately, this prevention was never taken, and Kero is still a rampant threat. So we sit here today with Radiance, who, with his voice changer, new virtual avatar, and lack of accountability, attempting to masquerade as a new identity to escape societal punishment. In the eyes of the law, he's safe for now, but we all know that he's not welcome in any corner of society, justifiably so. This is his attempt at avoiding that. Within the story of Kero, there are many sub-stories, many lessons, and many warnings. Over the years, there have been so many videos published on the topic. Some would even describe as oversaturation. I personally take no issue with this. If interesting stories came with a cap on how much they could be told, the world would be a lot more boring. Especially with all the unique ways Kero's story has been told so far. Although I've seen these people and these stories cause viewers to develop a type of false equivalence. Apples to oranges, equivalating zoosadis or more typically zoophiles to the masses of furries as a community. Whereas, as I stated in the opening lines of the video, what defines a furry in itself is a complete grey area, one that could never have a singular answer. However, as it stands, misconceptions sparking false equivalents have only been fueled by degenerates such as Kero the Wolf, setting as a stark reminder on who we idolize and how we present the fandom, and the consequences when this goes wrong. I've been Clappy, and that was the consequences of Kero the Wolf. Good night for now, losers. I'll see you next time.